To the Turners Novice Chase. We'll take a look at the betting for this. There's a dominant favourite, just like in the Arkle. This one, though, for Willie Mullins, Gaelic Warrior, who's been beaten, a fairly short price favourite in the Fred Winter. Still have scars. He's a top price 11-8, generally an even money shot after being second in the Ballymore last year. Facile Vega, more than likely to go here, you would imagine, after fluffing his lines in the Racing Post Novice Chase. 10-1. Indiana Dream has been taken out by almost every firm. You were warned by Katie and George, and they were the only two I saw to warn Ante-Post punters about that highly exciting horse, but very fragile one as well, who clearly needed a bog. Fact to file 12-1. Found a 50, could very well end up here. And Corbett's Cross, a hugely talented racehorse, a 10-1 shot as well. So that's the betting around Gaelic Warriors. So we touched on him briefly in the Arkle. He's a fascinating runner in this race, Katie. But he's been to the Cheltenham Festival, as you and George have both said, on 2 occasions, and he's been beaten twice. So question I have for both of you is, if he had run against his stable companion in Perry Pass at the Punchestown Festival, George, I'll start with you on this. Would he have beaten in Perry Pass going right-handed at Punchestown? Yes or no?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think right-handed is nearest, damn it, impossible to beat.
Katie?
I couldn't agree with George more. I think he's very runnable left-handed. We've seen that at Cheltenham twice, and I think he's just a completely different horse going right-handed.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. I don't think he improved for stepping up to 3 miles. I think it was the going right-handed is key for him. He's a very good horse going left-handed, but he's an exceptional one going right-handed. So it doesn't really matter what excuses we come up with as to why we think he can win the Turners. He has to be a take-on horse. He is vulnerable going left-handed. There's no getting away from that. So, look, do you think he can get away with it, Katie?
No, I actually don't think he can. Not at that level. Maybe running at Cheltenham, not at the festival, in a lesser graded race, he probably would get away with it. But I just think there's too much at stake here. He'd be losing too many lengths at his fences. You can't afford to make mistakes around Cheltenham at the festival. You need to be jumping straight. You need to be quick off the back of your fences. He's going to lose so much ground, and he's just going to be always on the back foot. I think Connections would probably be better off keeping him maybe to Irish tracks and run them right-handed than rather risk him running at Cheltenham again and finishing second again, is what I think would happen if he turned up there.
I agree with both of you. I don't think he should go at all. I'm not even sure that the Arkle would suit him. I get George's point, and maybe the argument that you could gun him from the front and try and blow the head off Marie Nationale. I don't think that would work out particularly well. I think Marie Nationale's too good to try that with him, and he's just going to lose too much ground jumping out to his right. You can't get away from it. It's going to happen. And they're already talking about the King George for him. So he's vulnerable. And at the price he is, he's got to be taken on. So the question then is, Katie, who is most likely to take advantage of Gaelic Warrior giving away all of those lengths, jumping right-handed at the fences? I've got a pretty strong horse in mind. I think we haven't talked about this, but you did mention something just before that we began that makes me think Fact to File is going to be very high on your list.
Yeah, he's kind of the standout horse here for me, even with Gaelic Warrior. If you take him into
Katie. Let's go, Katie.
Yeah, I think he kind of has everything going for him. I think Connections kind of made the right decision, sending him straight over fences. Missing a year of hurdles won't do him any harm. He's a 7-year-old now. He's the perfect age for his novice season over fences. He's the size and scope. I wouldn't be worried about that with him. I wasn't at all kind of worried about him on following his defeat in his Chase debut to American Mike. Kind of Gordon's horses are kind of primed and fit, ready to go for their first runs, and we've seen that a lot this season. And Willies are kind of tending to need their first runs, and they're approving they're probably about 20 pounds for their debuts. And this kind of happened here. I was actually confident enough to say that if they ever met again, Factify would reverse the form with them, and I think we can kind of say that now. That would probably most definitely happen. I thought he was kind of impeccable over at Leopardstown. I thought he was brilliant. He was still a little bit keen, but he was just carrying Mark along. I just thought he looked a dream ride. His jumping was really, really good. He'd improved off his chase debut. It's probably a little bit gassy, maybe. So we give him the benefit of the doubt at Navan. But out of the novice chase performances in Ireland over Christmas, he was the one. Even though he didn't win a Grade 1, he just blew me away. The way his manners and the way he did it. At the start of the season, I think kind of everyone had in mind that he'd be a 3-miler, an out-and-out galloper, but I actually think he's a lot more pace and boot than I originally thought anyway. And he showed me that Leopardstown. Like, I think he's got plenty in the tank, and I think the Turners would be the right race for him. I think the 3-miler, he might just be a little bit too keen throughout the race. This year, I do think he will stay 3-mile, no problem. But for his novice year this year, I think the 2.5 is made for him. He's got the pace. He's jumps brilliant. He's quick through the air. He's enough boot to be competitive over 2.5 in a Grade 1. And I think I think he's around 14 to 1. I think he could be a great bet.
Yeah, I agree with you, 110%. I'm super confident about this horse. I have a lot to say about him, actually. But George, I'd love to get your views on Fact to File as well. Kate's very keen on him. I'm very keen on him. Are you along with us, or are you here to burst our bubble?
I couldn't agree more. Like, he's the only horse in the race that's probably going to run here that's equal with Gaelic Warrior on RPRs. The other one obviously being Ile Francais, who's inexplicably 16 to 1 despite categorically not going here.
Never miss the opportunity to lay a bet on a horse who's not going to run.
Just in case.
Yeah. 12s, 14s on him. It seems like excellent value, especially given, like I said, there is half a chance Gaelic Warrior might go the Arkle instead. Facile Vega, while we
or skips it and goes to Ferryhouse.
Yeah. No, we say Facile Vega probably goes here, but has other options. Founder 50 has other options. Corbett's Cross, I'd say, almost definitely doesn't go here. Blood Destiny definitely doesn't go here. Hermes LN doesn't go here. There's a lot of these horses in quite high up in the betting that aren't going. You've got to think there's a world where Fact to File goes off favourite for this, like in terms of who's not running and things like that. So just to say you wouldn't back him at 12 to 1 would be madness. Like I think Gaelic Warrior, to me, like I just, if he was mine, I'd be going. I know Rich Ritchie's going to want him to run here, because wherever he goes Arkle or he goes Turners, he's probably going to go off. Here he'd go off favourite. The other race he'd go off second favourite. You're not going to turn down a horse a horse with a chance at Cheltenham. He can still go to the other spring festivals. I think it's a lovely idea to think we'll miss Cheltenham. I don't think he will, and I just think they'd be better off letting him use his speed in the Arkle. But he might jump right fractionally more, going a stride quicker. But at least there's 3 less fences to jump. Like, he's got 3 extra fences to jump out to his right at in the Turners. You could argue it's a slightly less tight course, but I'd be letting him use his speed in the Arkle anyway. But the one I'm going to go with, which is surprised on the day, not surprised if you're a long time listener, is Let's Be Clear About It, 25 to 1. I think it's a mad price given his 2 performances previous to his defeat at Ferryhouse. And as I said, with what was her name? The nice listed mare of Rob Course, Carla Conti. As I said, with Carla Conti, who ran at the same meeting. Horses that made the running at that meeting, you've got to forgive them. You have to, like, especially strong travellers like her and him. It was a graveyard for front runners that meeting. The ground was so tacky, and I'm more than willing to forgive him. And like I say, he looked the winner turning in before he's just not stayed in the ground. I think seeing him back on better ground at Cheltenham, he's going to be more effective. And even saying that I Am Maximus was a novice in name only, Founder 50 is half his price and the rest for this. I can see him turning it around with Founder 50 on the day, and if I can see him turning it around with Founder 50, you've got to say I can see him winning it. I think 25 to 1's a massive price. and it's going to disappear if he goes and hoses up this weekend, which I think he probably will do.
Yeah, he's going to have a fairly big shout of doing exactly that. I thought the analysis of Let's Be Clear About It from most people was just incredibly dismissive. And you were the only one I heard actually, I've said this before, but you were the only one I heard actually give a very reasoned breakdown as to why you should forgive horses who were beaten there. And for those who listened to that episode, look, you were there, you saw what the track conditions were like. And obviously found the 50s bounced out of that race and won a Grade 1 since. Defeat does not preclude them from being able to go on to the Cheltenham Festival and win a Grade 1. I agree with you in terms of price. I just don't think he has the level of class that Fact to File has. And I'm super excited about this horse. I'm maybe a little bit too excited about him. I probably need to calm myself down a little bit, because the last time I was this excited about a novice chaser, it was Hermes Allen in the Cotto Star Novice Chase, and that went disastrously wrong. But I am super confident about this fella. The backstory as to how he was acquired, like, he was super exciting in his point-to-point, and apparently Frank Berry and JP just wanted him there and then. He's by Politigate. They've had great success with Butler's Cabin and Sire de Burley in the past. They would want to try and replicate that again. I would imagine, and this is a guess, Katie, but I would imagine the reason they bought A Dream to Share wasn't so much that they thought, oh, that looks like a good horse. It's the fact that he beat Fact to File, and they regard Fact to File as highly as they do, and A Dream to Share beat him fair and square, and they still sent off Fact to File favourite for the champion bumper. No, the ground conditions were horrible, but they still sent him off favourite for a champion bumper, having acquired A Dream to Share. That tells you an awful lot about how highly regarded this horse is. Now, that's reaching. We're not talking about actual form. We're talking about why a horse was acquired, and then the thought process as to what it is they're doing with him. He could have been a leading middle-distance staying novice hurdler this season. He could have had a huge impact in the staying hurdle division. He could have been a major player for the Ballymore or the Potato Race. And Willie went, no, we're going straight over fences. They did that. Was Miss That they did it with? And that didn't work out at all. But of course, they famously did it with Florida Pearl. And I think when you add all of these things together, how he was acquired, how much was paid for him after his point-to-point, it was a lot of money. Buying A Dream to Share after that horse beat him at the DRF, sending him off favourite for the champion bumper, coupled with the compliments that Willie Mullins had for him after that Chase debut. Mark was waxing lyrical about him. Willie, I mean, you couldn't shut him up. It was unbelievable. He was blown away by what he did, and that's a Grade 1 performance. It's also the same novice chase Galopin des Champs won before going to the Dublin Racing Festival and tearing up the opposition over 2 Mile 5, which is surely the race they're going to go for, and then on to this one. He's massively overpriced, and he won't have any idiosyncrasies about jumping out right-handed. And there's an argument that he's really the number one, because Paul can't ride him, Mark's going to ride him, but it's not going to look like he's Willie's number one because of those riding arrangements. But there's a very strong argument to be made that he is actually Willie Mullins' number one contender for this race. I'm sure this is the race they're going to go for. I'd be amazed if it wasn't. I mean, we're getting 12-1 about this fella. This is one of the best bets for any novice chaser. This is one of the best bets for Cheltenham. This is a standout, unbelievably good value bet. I'm very confident he'll win at the DRF. It won't be easy if Gaelic Warrior ends up in that race, and that probably is the most likely race that Gaelic Warrior will go for, unless they decide to tilt at the Irish Arkle. But again, he has to prove that he can win a Grade 1 going left-handed. I don't know that Gaelic Warrior can do that. I'm very confident the Fact to File can. So I'm almost happy to leave this race at that and just go Fact to File wins, move on. Anybody else that we should mention? George?
No, not particularly. I just say about Gaelic Warrior, if you're back betting in this race, Ante-Post should be mentioned. While he's been beaten at Cheltenham twice, he still runs well. So if you're looking to back something at a big price each way, you've got to factor in that he'll still probably be in the 3, even if he gets beat. It's not like he's going to do a Goshen and run off the track. Like, he will still be bang there at the end, even if he jumps right too much to win. Like, he still beat Champ Kylie last year. He's a proper horse who's currently still missing in action. But he was
he's back.
very nice.
He's back in Cool Sutton.
He's alive.
He's
Can I
alive.
change my tip for this race?
They did the Racing Post proof of life. The Champ Kylie is alive and he's on his way back.
I saw he's in the betting for the stayers. I think is about the only thing he's still in. But yeah, I wouldn't like to see him there. If they had time to get a run into him for Cheltenham, I'd love to see him here. Well, mainly because I think I've got him backed for this and the Brown Advisory, so I'm on to an absolute hiding if he doesn't make it to Cheltenham.
Okay, I'm super excited about Factifile. Obviously, Katie is as well. George gave him a very positive mention, but his tip is right now is, let's be clear about it. Katie and I are both very confidently going for Factifile. Katie, is there anybody else we should mention before we move on to the Brown Advisory?
I think we have to touch on Facile Vega.
Of course, well done.
I think people are going to be a bit quick to write this horse off. Like, he's still won 4 Grade 1s. Like one bad run and he's like 10-1. Do you know? I just think it's a bit madness. Like, horses can bounce back, and you have to remember, like, one bad run isn't the end of the world. Like, he's still a 4-time Grade 1 winner. He's bred to stay. Quivega was 2.5 3-miler. She was very, very classy over the middle to long distances, out of a walk in the park. Like, he's not bred to be quick. I think they will step him up and trip, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a better horse. Like, we know, like, he is vulnerable, obviously. Now he has put in a disappointing run, but I think they still have that chance to step him up and trip, and I just wouldn't be writing him off just yet. Willie's a great man to have this type of horse bounce back after disappointing, and you have to remember that. Like, 10-1, like, he's probably never been 10-1 in his whole career for a race. I just wouldn't be surprised if we saw him back to winning ways this season over a step up and trip. So I'm just putting that out there. Yeah,
I think the point about the distance is really important to make. You know, walk in the park out of Quivega. Quivega, obviously 6 mares hurdles. I mean, this was her ideal trip, really. She was good enough to win the Champion Stairs race at Punchestown. She was good enough. She was good enough to win that, but I think that was more a case of they had Hurricane Fly, then they had Faugheen, and by that point she would have been getting older anyway, so it was just like slot her into that race because it fitted, as opposed to it was the ideal one for her.
Winning all the stayers for certainly her first year, wasn't he? And Ruby wouldn't have allowed himself to have to make the choice, I imagine.
No, well, that's the point, and I'm sure even if they did think she could truly win a Stayers hurdle, the problem that they would have had, the Hammer and Trowel Syndicate, is, okay, you can go for a Stayers, but not only will you not have Ruby Walsh riding her, you'll be riding against you. And that was what was a major upset for all of those connections. That's why Any Power...
And the alternative is an easier race. Like, it's not like the other one's the harder. Like, if it was the easier option where you weren't going to have Ruby, it'd be a decision to be made. The fact you're going, not only is it's going to be a harder race, Ruby's not going to be riding for you, he's going to be riding against you. We'll just go for the one we won last year.
Is there a jockey riding today that commands that kind of power?
I think the betting does react to Paul Townend's decision on what to ride at Cheltenham to an extent, but nowhere near what Ruby was doing.
Yeah, Paul is almost always right about those horses too, unless it's a Mark Walsh situation, which is an important one to remember, because Mark is obviously, that's a different ownership situation, and I guess you could say the same thing about Darrell, but Darrell is number one for Isaac Swade and Sam Munir, but only if Paul Townend doesn't want to ride, which is a kind of an awkward situation for him, but hey, he benefits from it greatly. I think it's a very important point to make, Katie. Facile Vega is not a horse that we should be underestimating by any stretch of the imagination. I just still think Factifile is the better of the two, but don't be surprised if it's a Willie Mullins 1-2-3 again at Cheltenham. He had a 1-2-3 with Gaelic Warrior last year. May very well be a 1-2-3 this year. In between, let's move on to the Stayers. So we'll do both. Brown Advisory and the Brown Advisory Novices Chase is as follows. Grange Clare West, 7-2. Factifile is priced up shorter for this race. I think this is a mistake from the odds compilers. I think this is a mistake from betting fans as well and racing fans. I do not expect him to run in this race. I very much expect him to go for the other one. Stay Away Faye. I don't think he's going to line up here either, by the way. I think he's going for the Gold Cup. More on that to come. Corbett's Cross, 10s, Gaelic Warrior. No chance he runs here. Broadway Boy. Ile Francais priced up yet again. Not going, lads. Monty Star. Katie, it's a open betting heat. We'll deal with this one before the National Hunt Chase. You were very confident about Grange Clare West. I was pretty confident about Grange Clare West and then managed to completely talk myself out of him with Favre de Chambeau. Is Grange Clare West the one they all have to beat in the Brown Advisory?
Yeah, I think he kind of sets the standard now after Leopardstown at Christmas. I did have my doubts about him in Grade 1 company, but he's kind of proved his point there that he is able to win a Grade 1, so we can cross that off the list. I think he deserves to be favourite for this. I know Stay Away Faye is just behind him in the betting, and he's plenty of class about him as well. But I just thought this horse was really impressive. The 3 mile trip will suit him down to the ground. I think he's closely related to 3 milers in his bloodline, so like he's bred to stay. That would be no problem. The only thing with him now is he has to prove that he can travel over. Like, he hasn't been, I don't think he's ever ran in the UK before. And I just have that in the back of my mind about him. It's like, there's plenty of horses that win a Cheltenham first time out, but he is 8. That'd be my only doubt in my mind, but it's a very small doubt. But I think he kind of sets the standard here for me. I'm just going to touch on Stay Away Faye. I think he's plenty of ability under the bonnet. I just think he's quite a slow horse, but he finds plenty of pressure off the bridle, and he digs deep in a battle. And I think that is what I really like about that horse. I just worry that he lacks a little bit of pace that kind of Grange Clare West might have. And I think that could be where he might be a little bit vulnerable, because he just lacks that gear that some of these other horses have. But look, I think if you're looking at those two, I'd be definitely going with Grange Clare West. The only other horse I was kind of looking at was Broadway Boy. I know he's also entered in the National Hunt Chase, and Connections probably, I don't think they've confirmed yet where they're going, but he wouldn't be a bad bet in this now. His course and distance form, like, you can't beat that. He's very, very good around Cheltenham. He looks a different level over fences this year, and I think Connections are really bullish about him. So that kind of speaks volumes. They seem really excited about him. I think if he was with a top trainer in Ireland, he'd actually be much shorter in the betting than he is. I think that's kind of something to point out. He's been very, very consistent over fences this term. I think he was only beaten by Florent Porter, which probably isn't a negative. I know he probably disappointed a little bit, but he's still a very, very good horse in his own right. His jumping is pretty good. He kind of, once he's in a rhythm, he seems to be very, very good. I know he kind of made a couple of mistakes down the back, but he still managed to pull it out of the bag and win. I think there's plenty to like about him, and I think he's priced around 16-1. I think kind of he's probably a nice each way bet there, that out of everything that I was looking at, he's kind of one that stands out for me at a bigger price for this race.
I think the big talking point about Broadway Boy is, first of all, the course and distance form, but secondly, that was a competitive handicap he was running in the other day, and I was really bullish of a big run from 300 through 5. I had Ella McNeil on the show that week. I had her on because I thought Thunder Rock was going to win the Paddy Power, and I got that wrong. But I expected 300 through 5 to win this. The market support for Broadway Boy was frightening. They were taking any price they could get. Oh, he's 6-4. We want more of that. We'll back him all the way into 11-8. It was unbelievable. They just knew he was going to win. And it's easy in hindsight. Oh, that thing was a certainty. There's no such thing as a certainty in racing. They knew. And is that enough to win a Brown Advisory? No, it's not. But he's only 6, so he's probably still improving. And he might very well continue to improve to a point where he will be good enough to win this race. I think they want the Sam Tristan-Davis connection for Cheltenham as well. So that's probably going to rule out the National Chase. I think we're all in agreement that's the race that he's most likely to win. But I wouldn't rule him out of this at all.
You say that, but Sam Twiston keeps getting off him. He hadn't ridden him the 2 starts prior to this one. I couldn't understand it. I could not understand it why he didn't ride him the time before when Belzy won on him. All I can think is there's some sort of gentleman's agreement with Di Walters, is that Sam Twiston will ride them when he can. But the vibes didn't seem to be that at all. It seemed bizarre to get off Broadway Boy, who won at Cheltenham the time before, looked the most likely winner. And we've all been caught, who they've spent the last year and a half telling us is going to be their Gold Cup horse one day. And Sam Twiston-Davies is on no risk at all. Like, good risk.
Yeah. Do you know that there was, I think it was Racing TV afterwards, and I'm sure it was Lydia asked him, why did you not ride Broadway Boy?
A load of rubbish. Load of rubbish. What you said.
Okay, so you think this is nonsense? Because my memory of what he said, and bear in mind, I've been riddled with COVID for the last week, so I misremember things like mad. Also, he does make you a little bit delirious, by the way. Maybe that's why I'm so bullish Factifile is going to win the Turners. Oh no, I might have to re-record this in a week's time. But I'm sure he said to Lydia, I couldn't choose which was the right one, so I just decided not to ride either of them and ride Good Risk at all instead.
There's loads of bollocks. You can't decide between the 2 horses. You go, I know one of these 2 horses is going to win, but which one is it? I'll ride one that's not going to win.
Hasn't got a chance.
Ride one that's got no chance and can't jump and might kill me.
and he just so happens that Broadway Boy is there. Yeah, it also just so happens that Broadway Boy is backed as though defeat is out of the question in that race as well. With Sam not on board. Yeah, it's an interesting one.
I wonder if someone else was declared on him, if the price went out a bit.
Oh, of course it did. Of course it did. Hey, we all have to eat, George. We've all got to eat. All right, Broadway Boy is that your selection, Katie?
I'm going to go with Grangeclair West as kind of my first for that race, but Broadway Boy, I think at a bigger price is something to think about. And at 16 to 1 at the moment, I think he's a good bet.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
Under the impression that he goes for that, because I'm kind of thinking that going down the black line route with him again, but that's just kind of what I was thinking.
That's a possibility too. I'm gonna put one up before George does, and I really might need. You kind of worked this out, George, haven't you?
Yeah.
So should you just call the men in white coats now and have them burst in as I'm in the middle of this monologue explaining why this horse is such a big price and should be backed?
Absolutely not. It's a genius bit of punting for sure.
Yeah, the sarcasm detector.
Do I detect a note of sarcasm? Are you kidding me? This baby is off the charts. Why?
A sarcasm detector. Well, that's a really useful invention.
Hermes Allen.
Yep.
See, George can read my mind. He knows. This is crazy. He's 20 to 1. He shouldn't be 20 to 1. He doesn't have to face Ile Francais. He's not going to be anywhere near him. That's the best horse he's ever going to face. And I don't think they're going to run Stay Away Faye here. I think most people will tell you this is the race for Stay Away Faye. That Cotswold Chase has fallen apart. Gentleman's Game's not going to go for it. Mouse Morris, the way Mouse Morris was talking today, they're going to go straight to Cheltenham with Gentleman's Game. And I don't know about both of you, but this is becoming worrying to me because all the Rob Core horses seemingly are just going right to Cheltenham. And I'm starting to get the view that they don't want to make the mistake they made with Jerry Colomb, because the Gold Cup dream is over for Jerry Colomb. But I suppose we're all supposed to go on the Cheltenham preview nights and say, oh, yeah, well, Jerry Colomb, nice horse. On the new course, he might be able to get that a little bit closer to him. He'll be lapped. And so will Gentleman's Game. He's got no chance in a Gold Cup. What's his claim to fame of winning a Gold Cup? He beat Brave Man's Game. Sure, anybody can do that. Hewick and Royal Pagaille have done it. Faster Slow did it back in the summer. That's no big thing. By the way, he needed weight from Brave Man's Game and Brave Man's Game to make a mistake at the last because he was cooked. Dara O'Keefe was out with the washing and Dara gave him a great ride to win. But the notion that fella's going to win a Gold Cup Come off the stage, lads. Back to Hermes 11. Jesus, COVID has made me go off in all kinds of different tangents. He's been sent off favourite for a Ballymore and blew out. He's gone to Cheltenham. He's gone to Aintree and got his ass handed to him by Irish Point, but he had the breathing up. He can now run straight and through, right to the line, and he was brilliant on Chase debut. He's come up against the best novice chaser in training. The only horse that can beat him realistically, in my opinion, is Gaelic Warrior. And what a joy it'll be to see LA Francais in the King George later this year. Please God, touch wood, we'll all be fitting well and we can cover it. There's nothing of that caliber taking him on this time around. And I think this is the race he'll go for. Stay Away Faye will go for the Gold Cup. Harry Cobden, Paul Nichols, 20-1. It's too big a price. He's my tip for the Brown Advisory. George Gorman, back me up.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't really add anything to it. Like the RPRs for his first and second run over fences are the same. But I think that's a bit unfair, to be honest. I think he was actually better the second time. You think if LA Francais doesn't turn up, which is I know there's a lot of this race to say, yeah, but he did. But this is a horse that we can reasonably not think about for Cheltenham. Any race, that race that he ran in is an irrelevance to Cheltenham Festival because LA Francais isn't turning up. If Hermes Len is allowed to do his own thing and run his own race and not try and beat LA Francais, he wins that by a street. And what's he then, like RPR of 164, probably favourite for this? Like I think it's ridiculous the price he's gone to for being defeated by not only an excellent horse, but a horse that is not going to Cheltenham. So he'd 100%, he'd be my selection, and at 16-1 you can afford to go each way. Like it's a sort of no-brainer for me. Totally agree with Katie on Broadway Boy. He's one of my favourite horses in training. Like I love this horse. So he's a supermodel. He jumped. I think he jumps great. I think the reason he wasn't so good the last day was they were stepping up to 3-2, and Sam A doesn't know him that well. Like he actually hasn't ridden him a whole lot, and B was trying to sort of get him to settle. He was much better the time before, ridden more forcefully. Like the only fence that Tom, I think there was one fence, wasn't there, where Tommy like sent him into a fence and he put down. Did it? Or was it the opposite? It might have been the opposite. It might have been that he did what Sam did and sat still and he came up and landed on one. I'd have to go back and watch it. But my problem with Broadway Boy is I think this is probably the right race to run him in because I think he's better being ridden more forcefully, and we know he stays further than 3 miles. I'm just not sure. A lot of these have the scope to improve, and he's had quite a few runs over fences now. I'm not sure he's quite going to have the class to win it. And my problem with him running in the National Hunt Chase was, I think, like I said, I think he's much better ridden more forcefully, and I think he's going to make life very hard for himself over 4 miles if he's going from the front and trying to absolutely wing every fence. But he's a horse I like a lot, and certainly at this price does make each way appeal for sure. But again, agreeing with Katie, I think Grange Clare West is the one they've all got to beat. I really, really like this horse. So he seems to have everything. He stays well. He's got plenty of pace. I think if any horse has the ability, he has enough tools in his locker to deal with Stay Away Faye, which a lot of horses only have sort of one play at him, which is have a go at him after the last and hope you don't get in a battle. You can sort of pass him for a few strides and get him beat. I think Grange Clare West could probably outstay him or outspeed him, provided he travels over okay and everything. He's the most likely winner. You've got to bear in mind Stay Away Faye will be better at Cheltenham. Whichever race he goes in, he will be better than he's shown us so far this season. Being able to take a lead and running off a fast pace, it's just going to bring his stamina into it more and more. I can't see, certainly at 7 years old, he's not the sort of horse that's going to be run off his feet. I've never seen him run off his feet, but I've seen him plenty of times have to make his own running and get caught flat-footed for a few strides. Like the faster they go, the better he's going to be. But I still don't think he's going to be good enough to beat Grange Clare West. So, yeah, I'd say same as you, Emmet. I think the value here is Hermes Lane because he's a contender to potentially win this race, and he's an each way price.
copy, paste, all of the above. That's exactly what I would think. Is the Cotswold Chase running the new course?
My career as a jockey didn't really need me to know the difference between the two. It's only it's only since I've retired that I've actually had to learn it. In fact, I had a ride around Cheltenham and I couldn't tell you which one it was on. You all right?
Man, I'd done so well without doing a Bob Fleming impression on this show, but you'd said it. Oh, if you make him laugh, he's going to go off. And yeah, there's the old asthmatic COVID cough.
Yeah.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you. So he'll win that. He's going to take on the real whacker. As I said, gentleman's game, it looks like he's going to skip it. And once he's won the Cotswold Chase, they'll go for the Gold Cup, which I think he's a player in, by the way, because I'd said this in the interview with Gavin Lynch back in early December, just when we had started up the YouTube version of the Final Furlong podcast, which, again, thank you for being here with us. Like and subscribe. I think that's what we're supposed to be saying. If you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, you're missing out on all the great insight from Katie and George. What are you doing? Hit that subscribe button. Tell all your friends. Tell your enemies. Tell your Grange Clare West for both Katie and for George. Broadway Boy is the each way alternative for Katie. George, your each way alternative?
Yeah, Hermes Lane.
Hermes Lane for both George and I. I would agree that Grange Clare West is absolutely the one they all have to beat.